So, what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the Akashic Records. And if you have any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to type it into the chat. And then afterwards, I'll be glad to answer questions. And then we'll draw to see who wins the free reading. So basically, I want to talk a little bit about what the Akashic Records are. And Akasha is a Sanskrit word that means soniferous ether, or sound vibrations of the heavens. Now, I love that because it is an energetic field that we can tune into. And even though it says sound vibrations of the heavens, we all listen in different ways. Some of us are more clairvoyant, means clear seeing. Some of us are claircognizant, where we just know. Sometimes we're clairsentience, which is a feeling in the body. Where we can also be clairscent, which means that we smell. That's how we get information, is through smelling something. We can also be clairsavoyance, have clairsavoyance, which means that we taste something in our mouth. So there's all kinds of ways to receive information. It's not necessarily just being clairvoyant. And then another way is clairaudient, is hearing something. Now, it doesn't mean like you're going to hear necessarily voices in your head like you're crazy. It means that your hearing is how you get information from the higher realms. So we all have that ability to tune in. And when we're talking about the Akashic, it's the past, the present, and future possibilities all reside in that energetic field. And that field is everywhere present. So we can tune into it at any time. And it's actually full of information that is seeking us. It's almost like it's alive. Like that information is floating around and it's looking for somebody to receive it. So when we enter into a state where we want to receive information from the Akashic Records, there's many ways to do that, and I'll talk briefly about that as well. The most important thing is to really open up and expand in a very large way. And I always talk about, because we're connecting through our crown chakra, through that energy at the top or above our head, what do you have on top of your head? Do you have a funnel that's big and expansive, or do you have an eyedropper? And then when you're asking questions, you want to make sure that you're asking either expansive questions and then narrow it down. Because if you start out with really limiting questions, you're limiting the universe. So for example, if you're asking about a new job, let's say, because we all change jobs or we want to know about our career, and we say, universe, Akashic Records, I want to know whether I should take job A or job B. Well, you're limiting your response to A or B. If you ask a question, show me what I need to know about getting a new job, then you're allowing that expansiveness and the record keepers from the Akashic Records to filter information to you that you might not even know about to ask. So it's really important that you ask really broad-based questions. And sometimes people think that when you tap into the Akashic Records, it's always about the future, but it's not. It's future possibilities, because we have free will. And if what we do today changes because we have something changes in our life, or we get some sort of message or insight, then what we do tomorrow could change, and that can change the Akashic Records. So every time because it's future possibilities. So every time you tune in, you can get different information. It may be the same or it may be different. So I don't want that to throw you off either. Excuse me. So there's different kinds of readings too. Whether you're doing a reading for yourself or whether you're doing a reading for someone else. So there's a general reading, and that just is, you go into the records and you just say, I need some information, show me what I need to know. What's my next step? You really want to avoid why. Why is my boyfriend being so mean? Because when you say why, the universe reads that as whiny. And so you really want to avoid that. So you can go in and you can ask general questions. And then you also may want to ask questions about dreams. Many times we get amazing messages through our dreams because we're in a relaxed and receptive state. So you may want to go in and ask questions about your dreams. And again, show me what I need to know about the dream I had last night. What does the symbolism of a red flower mean? I felt the presence of someone in my dream, but I'm not sure who that is. Show me who that is. What's the meaning behind it? Try to dig as deep as possible so that you can really bring meaning. And then take notes. Make sure you take notes, because once you learn how to do this and tap in, you're going to get all kinds of information. And you think, oh, I'll remember that, but that doesn't always happen. So another type of reading is a health reading. And again, you can do this for yourself or do this for somebody else. So you go into the Akashic Records, and I love to use Edgar Cayce. He was a psychic, and he would go into a trance, and he would get all kinds of information. And one of the kinds of readings that he would do were health readings. And he would actually diagnose people that he had never met, that had been undiagnosed, and then he would also get homeopathic or naturopathic remedies, and these people would have amazing recoveries. So you can also get health readings. You can also get past life readings, and there's a couple of kinds of past life readings. One is for yourself, or if you're in relationship with someone, whether it's friendship or whether it's a romantic relationship, you can do a past life crossing and get information on the reasons that you have crossed paths with this person in a past life, and they've probably shown up in this lifetime because you got some work to do. Whenever you have unresolved issues, tapping into the Akashic Records allows you to really understand on a deep level what's going on in your life, why you're attracting certain people, what kind of karma you're trying to deal with and break or enhance, or whatever you want to think about it. And so many times people think, oh, that's good karma or that's bad karma. But karma is really just a pattern of memory. So when you're tapping into the Akashic Records, you're tapping into that pattern of memory that can bring that information forth, and then you can start to resolve issues in your life because you understand at a deeper level. Another type of reading is what I call a oneness reading. Now, this is really kind of unexpected. It's happened a few times with me when I've been reading other clients, and then also when I've been doing it myself, but it doesn't happen a lot. And it is a feeling of really connected energy to being one with everything. When you have this kind of reading, it's very unexpected, and it typically takes you to a place that you've never experienced, and it's blissful. It's amazingly blissful. If you're doing it for one of your clients, then what happens is your client feels it too. And you may have similar experiences, or they may be a little bit different, but there should be some similarities between the experiences when you are doing readings for other people and you have what I call a oneness reading. There's also a spiritual type of reading which will help you increase your spiritual capacity and also move you down your spiritual path so that you have a deeper understanding of your connection to spirit and also your connection to what your life purpose is. Some people may call it a life purpose reading, but it's really a very spiritual experience. It's that kind of reading that after you finish it, you're thinking, I just feel so good because I'm so different now. I've really changed. So there's that kind of reading. And then there's also a reading that's kind of a spiritual phenomena reading, and not necessarily spiritual, but just a psychic phenomena. Like you're doing a reading either for yourself or you're doing it for someone else, and all of a sudden there's lights in the room, or something unexplained happens. The TV comes on, or the doorbell rings and there's nobody there, or you hear knocking. Typically that means that there is a loved one in the room, but some sort of spirit is trying to get your attention. And that can happen as well, too, when you're doing the Akashic Records reading. And then it's not always spiritual. Sometimes it's information. I think about some of the great inventors like Einstein. He used to sit in a kind of an altered state. He called them thought experiments. And he felt that he was tapping into something much greater than himself, which really was the Akashic Records. And look at all the kinds of information that he got. And so you can get information that's not necessarily spiritual information, but it's where everything resides. So you're unlimited. You're really tuning into that potential that is unlimited. So there are several ways to tune in. One, I'm going to go back to Edgar Cayce. He was a trance. He went into a trance. He laid down on this couch, and right before he fell asleep, he would go into an altered state. Now, what I find extremely interesting about Edgar Cayce is every single time he did a reading, right before he got information, he said, they have the body. And that meant that he was totally available, and that the higher realms had taken over his body in such a way to give information. And he gave several kinds of information, including the health readings, but he also did a lot of past life, including Atlantis type of readings. And he found a lot of patterns and a lot of battles between good and evil within people. And sometimes people actually knew each other in past lives that came to him, even though they may not have known each other in this life. So it was very, very interesting. So he went into a trance. You can also do what is called scrying. And scrying is a Sanskrit word that means to see. And there's different ways to scry. Probably the one that everybody knows about the most is the crystal ball. And when you are using a crystal ball, you're not really staring into it and thinking that something is going to pop out at you. You're using it as an item to focus on so that you get into an altered state and you start to allow the way that you receive information to come through. So you can use scrying to access the Akashic Records. You can also scry with ink, and they used to do this a long time ago. They would put ink on the little finger, and then they would stare at the ink on the little finger and get into an altered state and get all kinds of information. And they used that actually in Rome quite a bit, and they would use children because they felt that children didn't alter or filter that information, that what they got is really what was pure. So they used that quite a bit. Now, when I tap into the Akashic Records and when I teach my class, I teach the prayer method. And I don't teach that there's just one prayer because we're all individuals. But I do teach that there are certain elements that go into that prayer. And so when I go into the Akashic Records, I used focused prayer and thought to get into a state where I can receive information. And I just want to tell you that regardless of what method you use, that the preparation and the intention is very important when you start to tap into the Akashic Records. One of the things, too, is that there are Akashic record keepers that will retrieve information for you. And so the first time that you go into the Akashic Records, it's really important to kind of get acquainted with who your record keepers are. Now, excuse me, that doesn't mean that they need to give you some sort of name, but it does mean that you need to have some sort of relationship with them. And they look different to different people. They sound different to different people because, again, we're all different. We all receive information in different ways. My record keepers are very robotic. Like, there's no personality. They just retrieve information. I see in my mind's eye, I see a library, and then instantly they retrieve that information. But I've had some clients where their record keepers are really more fun types of looking in entities, where mine are just very robotic. So it really depends on the person, and nothing is wrong or nothing is right. And the main thing is practice, practice, practice. Now I'm going to stop here. Does anybody have any questions? Do you have any questions about what the Akashic Records are, the ways to tap in, anything like that? I'll give you just a minute here. Okay, I don't see anybody typing, so let me ask you this. Has anybody here ever tapped into the Akashic Records using any kind of method? Okay, so to tap in, you, again, I use a prayer process, and it is, there are steps, and you create your own prayer that has certain elements into it. But again, you can practice by doing some of these other things. Leonardo da Vinci tapped into the Akashic Records, and one of the things that he was really famous for was the way that he mixed color. And so what he would do is he would take a candle and he would light it and place it at the foot of his bed, and then he would watch the reflection off the ceiling, but it would get him into an altered state. So you're really trying to get into an altered state to tap in. And I would just encourage you to try different things. And then once you get relaxed and feel in an altered state, then I would definitely start to ask questions and see if you start to receive some information. And again, I have a series of classes. The first one is 2 days long, and it takes you through the process of developing your own Akashic record prayer so that you can tap into your own records. And I really encourage you doing that so far for yourself. And then the subsequent classes are to get comfortable in the records, go deeper, and then to tap into other people's records. One thing I do want to mention here, and it's really, really important, is you only want to tap into somebody's records with their permission. You need to make sure that you have their permission before you tap in, because it's really kind of an invasion of privacy if you want to try to get information about someone else. Now, that said, if you have an issue with, let's say, somebody at work, or you're in a relationship, you can still ask information about, what do I need to know about my relationship with Bill? Or what do I need to know about my relationship with Sue, without actually tapping into their records. So so that's, that just caution you on that. Don't try to tap into somebody else's records, because it's kind of a violation. And then let me see. I'm sorry, my dog is going crazy here because he thinks I'm cheating on him. Are the Akashic Records available to everyone, or just to a select few? I really feel that they are available to everyone. It's what we're focusing on, right? If you believe in any kind of higher intelligence, God, spirit, source, that's everywhere present, it's always broadcasting, but are we paying attention to that, and how do we tune into it? And people like Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, Socrates, Nostradamus, all of those people tapped into something that was greater than themselves, which is the Akashic Records. So with focused thought, prayer, intention, practice, I believe anyone can tap into it, that it's not just for a select few. And then how do you know that it is the I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pull this over so I can see it. Give me just 1 second here. How do you know that it is the Akashic Hall of Records that you are tapping into and not other guidance? You know, that's a great question, because a lot of times we think that, you know, we hear more than one voice, or we think, oh my gosh, what, you know, what is speaking to me? So you can always say, am I in the Akashic Records? Am I in the Hall of Records? Is this the Book of Life? And say, are you my record keeper? Or one of my record keepers? You may have several record keepers. And so you can ask, and again, practice. Practice, practice, because as you practice, then you can determine which voice. Anytime you are tapping in, I would ask, and in the class that I teach, and I know other people that teach a little bit differently, they always, once you are opening the records, the first thing you say is, are my records open? Are they open? And you'll get a clear yes or a clear no, depending on how you receive information. If you're not sure, sit for a moment and then try it again. Are my records open? And if you get a yes, then your records are open. Okay? And then as far as other guidance, this is really interesting too, because again, you can always ask. Sometimes I channel a non-physical entity called epitaph, and I didn't know what that was, but it was so compelling that I had to, in the moment, sit down and write what was coming through, which of course is always inconvenient, right? It's always when you're rushing out the door trying to go to work, or you're thinking, oh, I'm going to take a bath and go to bed, and then you get some sort of information. So you can just ask. And so when epitaph came through for the first time, it was so compelling, and it really kind of made me mad a little bit. So I said, who are you? And he said, I am epitaph. And I said, what does that mean? He said, Google it, which I thought, okay, that sounds really crazy. So I Googled it, and it means hereafter. He told me how to spell it too. He said, spell it like this, and it means hereafter. And I said, are you, of course, all in my mind, I wasn't talking out loud. I said, are you my guide? He said, I am guidance. So it's not, he wanted to make sure that it was not associated with any kind of entity. So you can always just ask, are you my record keepers? And you can say, how can I recognize you? That's always a good way to get information too. Does that help? Does that help? Are there any other questions? And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to walk my dog outside because he is going a little crazy here. And I'm trying to ignore him, but he does not want to be ignored, so he's going outside. Anything else? And again, there are books too that you can buy that help you tap in. But it's really about setting the intention, clearing your mind, making sure that you don't have any preconceived ideas about what you're going to receive, because sometimes we tend to think, oh, I know the answer to that, but I'm just going to verify that with the records. And again, I go back to how do we ask questions? Are we asking, is the information I'm getting okay? It's not always a great question because it's a yes-no question. So ask, show me what I need to know when you go in. Show me what I need to know about X. How must I handle X? Make it as expansive as possible. Okay, I think we're just about out of time. Is there any other question? I know this is a short introduction. I will probably have some more just little snippets about different things. I really appreciate you all coming today. I always like to close my session with a prayer too, because opening and closing sessions, or opening and closing any kind of session with intention, is really important. And you don't always want to necessarily leave the records open. So I always ask that my records be closed. I have one more question. So I have two more. So do I set the intention and then go into trance and then hope it happens? Well, if you're setting the intention to get into the Akashic Records, know that it's going to happen. Now, does it happen the first time? Sometimes, sometimes not. If it doesn't happen the first time, if you don't feel that energy of the Akashic Records, because you'll know it's a pretty powerful energy, sometimes we have blocks that need to be released. Maybe there's something in a past life that scares us. Maybe we used our power in a past life, maybe for something that's not so good. And so we're blocking that. And you can still get information by asking that question, because you might need to work on something before that fear goes away. And this is a good time when you work with a partner maybe, and if you know how to do any kind of muscle testing, you can muscle test for beliefs and see if there's a belief that you're holding. You may not hold it up here in your head, but if you're doing muscle testing, a lot of times you are holding it in your body, and you can release that. Now, there is a prayer that I use to release any kind of information. And again, I want to tell you that we live in a very scientific universe. So if you want to release something, remember that you're creating a void when you release it. So you want to fill up with just the opposite. So the prayer is basically, you put your hands on your heart, and then you ask a higher power, creator, spirit, all that is, I release to you all the times in this lifetime and in past lifetimes X, whatever it is you want to release, whatever's blocking you, whether it's in this lifetime or past lifetimes. It could be my fear of my gifts, my fear of tuning in. And then breathe it out, let it go, just really release it back to that space that's greater than us. And then with your hand still on your heart, say, creator of all that is, spirit source, I allow in the opposite of whatever it is that you've released, because you want to fill in that void that you've just created. Because the universe always seeks to fill a void or a vacuum. And if you do not consciously fill it up, you will fill it up with whatever you've released. Because if you, let's say, you've been in a relationship that hasn't been working, and you release that relationship, but you don't do any work, guess what? You create another relationship just like that, only the person that's participating has a different face. It's a different person, but it's the same type of energy. So be very mindful about it. Release and allow. Release and allow. The reason you put your hands on your heart is it gets you out of your head. Being in your head makes you crazy. I don't know about you, but I sometimes have a committee up there. And that's another thing you can use too when you're actually working in the records, is to use that prayer. I release all of the things in this lifetime and in past lifetimes, and then I allow new information in. Can you ask about soul agreements? Yes. Is that something that can be shared in Akashic Records? Yes. You can ask about soul agreements. Depending on what you're asking, you'll get more information in reference to you unless you're working in tandem. So say you're in a relationship and you want to know about the other person and you can open the other person's records and your records. And again, there's steps to do that. There's a lot of steps to do that. It's not something that you can necessarily do right away, but with practice you can, and you can take different avenues if you already are using some sort of form of tapping in. Okay, so we have gone over, because I guess I can talk a lot. So I do appreciate everyone. I'm going to close with a prayer. I just invite us to close our eyes. Dear sweet, sweet Spirit, we give thanks for this session tonight, knowing that you are with us always as we will walk along our path. We are empowered by the spark of divinity within us, and we give thanks for that. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. So I appreciate everybody participating tonight. I actually said that if you signed up, you would be in the drawing. So I have everybody's name in here, although not everybody came to the actual meeting. I'm going to pick a name in here. So I don't know if y'all can see, but I do have everybody's name in here. So I'm picking someone now. And it is Kathy Lazebo Frietas, which I don't think she's on the call, but she's the one that, oh, I shouldn't give you her email, but that's who's won. And so I will be contacting her for a free reading. I really appreciate everybody coming. Thank you too. Rosie, it's great to see you. Thank you for getting up in the middle of the night for this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate it. So I will actually have a recording of this, and I'll send out the link. I mean, if you want to share it with somebody, that's fine. If you think it's beneficial, that would be great. And if you have any questions, if you come up with questions, you can always email me. So I really appreciate everything. And I look forward to talking to you soon. I am having a 2-day Akashic Records class this Saturday and Sunday. It's from 10 to 4 on Saturday and 10 to 2 on Sunday. And we go through exactly what to do to create your own prayer and to tap into your Akashic Records. If you're interested in that, you can email me, and I will send you the booklet. It's about, I guess it's about 30 pages, but the outside of it looks like this. And then you can just download it and print it out. It's pretty comprehensive. We go through a lot of different things. So again, I thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I probably won't get the link out tonight, but within the next couple of days. So thank you so much. And I'm sorry for having trouble on the front end. This is a new software I'm using. So anyway, thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye now.